for that kind of projects, that is time and effort, we need to convey our team that from employee they can be our partners to motivate them. So how that can be executed in a professional way, that the team should get motivated and they can get some partnership or some commission in the project. So how you will suggest the implementation of that as per your experience?
Sure, it's a great question, and it's an age-old problem. Yeah? There's another quip that I've heard for a long, long time that says fire quick and hire slow. Okay? If you look to Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great and Built to Last, and you go to jimcollins.com, he talks about essential concepts of scaling organizations. And in there, he talks about first who, then what. And so what I would say, Hamza, is that focusing on hiring the right individuals is essential through every phase of the startup. Your founding partners, your first key employees, and even extending beyond that. Bringing the right people on board can make or break the organization. Just like you're potentially talking about, where if you have people who maybe aren't as motivated, aren't as aligned with the objectives, don't understand what the art of the possible could be or the benefit at the far end, if they're just acting as employees, it'd be very difficult to get them to produce good output, and they can become burnt out, they can become disenfranchised, and actually cause you more than they're worth from an overall organizational perspective. So I would say being more diligent related to who you're bringing on is the first step. Second is going back and having conversations with the individuals who maybe aren't performing, and have a conversation with them and realign around what expectations are. Right? There's a difference between working for a very large, mature organization that has a robust business model and they've been in business for decades and they have disposable income, versus a startup where literally every penny matters. I mean, I was just, again, watching a clip on LinkedIn today from one of the founders of Google, who had a desk as one of his first doors. A door as one of his first desks. And he was so fiscally conscientious that, they just found this scrap piece of wood and they were using it. So to answer your question, hire the right folks. If you have underperformers, have a conversation, try and get them on board. And if you can't, make a change in staff, because you can't afford to keep carrying the weight when you need to be so nimble. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, almost. But the point was that how I can convert good performing employee to a partner.
So it really I'm not sure I fully understand the question. Yeah? So there are any number of different shareholder options or long-term incentive programs. You can provide fiscal benefits, right? But it really depends on where you and the individual are, as well as your organization, and what the potential exit or growth plan for your company could be. I apologize. That's just a more nuanced question that I think I can answer in this forum.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Apologies. Any other questions?
We have Muhammad Iftikhar Yazdani.
Hi, thank you. I'm at home right now, so you probably just heard my daughter. Never mind. I just need to know. Just give me a second. No, you're not allowed to watch TV. There you go. No, especially not on record. So I'm developing an OTT platform with a few things here and there. Again, we see Netflix as an example, and there are many other examples, but in terms of financial success, what would be your advice? I mean, considering that I'd like to target the MENA region. Sure. No problem at all about your daughter. I miss when my daughter was that age. I miss it very much. So you said you're building an OTT platform and you'd like to target the MENA region. Understood. I actually spent about 20 years in telecommunication. I had experience and exposure to when OTT first launched, and it's been fascinating to watch it grow since. I would encourage you to find something new and different and innovative in the space, and to make that a little less abstract. There's a lot of Me Too plays out there. I think, they're clearly technologically advanced protocols that you can make use of. We've certainly seen experience over the last decade in terms of what good looks like from a UI UX perspective. Personally, as a consumer, I still think there are challenges related to recommendations and finding content that would actually be applicable to me, as well as managing the feed within a given household related to content that's appropriate for me versus, I've been in a number of different relationships and my profile gets muddied with others in my household, and while that might seem nice on the surface, sometimes giving consumers a bit more control there might be good. There's also the advent of esport as well as joint watching, which I think could be very intriguing for OTT. And then I'll encourage you to make sure that you find a very cost-conscientious way to produce your product and find a way to really make it easy to distribute content. The video space, the OTT space is not for the faint of heart. There's a lot going on from a commercial, technological, security, and privacy perspective. And the integration space is very, very complicated, so I encourage you to do your research, know your competition, and again, find one or two killer features that can give you a chance to really grow a consumer base, and then hopefully have I presume, a successful exit. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. If you could just add on to that, do you think would you rather advise that I keep the access to the OTT perhaps free for a certain period of time so that it can build the user base initially, and then eventually start putting a price tag on it, or would that send agree to? I don't know.
There are a lot of different models. Okay, and what model is right for you and the product and your organization isn't something that a quick conversation can cover. We could certainly connect and have a deeper conversation. For sure. I would say that the premium model has a certain usage pattern, and you can see it out there in the world. But it's tough to, in some cases, transition from premium to full monetization. And there are many organizations that have died a painful death as a result of trying to make that transition or not having a clear path to it. So I unfortunately won't answer that question directly because it's just too nuanced. Thank you.
Moving on to Ali's name.
Hey Eric, sorry, I don't know if you have answered this question yet or not, but I'll still ask it. In your view, do you think that AI, the artificial intelligence, and the chat GPT are dangerous for us or the people working jobs? You see a lot of people in particularly Asia and the other parts of the world seeking it dangerously and saying that it's dangerous for our wages and other things. So how do you see it?
Sure. So first off, I'm going to avoid all social and political aspects of AI in this response. Okay, we're going to talk purely about technology and purely about, say, product development and organizational growth. Okay. Secondly, I would say that Gen AI is an absolute game changer for the technology industry in general. It's as significant for us as the introduction of the combustible engine, the introduction of the telegram, the introduction of the first telecommunications capabilities. It's a major game changer, and actually wrote a piece not too long ago on LinkedIn about that. I think it's the new de facto base standard, and I encourage anybody who's looking to pursue technology or business for that matter to become comfortable with Gen AI, because I really do think it's here to stay. It's just become the new floor. Now, with that said, it's highly disruptive. It's highly disruptive. I mean, if you look at the types of jobs that I've done in the past, where I've been a SysM and a software developer and an architect and an analyst and any other number of roles, there's already AI engines out there that are capable of getting really close to being good at all of those disciplines. And frankly, it's a little creepy, it's a little weird to see things that I worked so long and so hard on, someone else can pick up a tool and make use of. But I would say that there's still value in your ability to think critically and to take the information and to determine if it's valid and accurate for the given situation. Again, I use LinkedIn and Bloomberg and Business Insider as regular media feeds for myself. And I read a piece, I think it was on Bloomberg, about how an organization was going through legal tax filings, and they were using Gen AI as a way to try and double check their own work, as well as determine if it was mature enough to actually move their whole operation to and achieve some efficiency gains. And what they found was it's right about half the time. So about half the time, instead of having dozens of hours of work, they have a couple of minutes of work because it goes through the engine and it comes out just fine. But the other half of the time, they send it through the engine and it comes out, and then they have to spend a bit of time looking it over, analyzing it, determining if it was right, deciding it wasn't, and then going and spending those dozens of hours themselves anyway, right? So I wouldn't necessarily call it dangerous. I would call it a game changer. I would call it a new de facto standard, and I would encourage folks to at least be aware of its capabilities and its implications on where you're trying to do business. Does that answer your question, Ellie?
Yes, Eric, it does answer my question, but I have an add-on if you have some time. I'd like to ask that if AI is good that much, then can it replace humans, or it will be a helper for humans already doing their work? Like if a programmer is doing their work, like, so it's an helper tool for them, or is it like an replacer for them, that it will replace their job soon enough, like by 2030 or 2035?
Sure. So I am not a futurist, okay? I'm operations and a strategist and an executioner, so I won't look too far into the future. But again, I view Gen AI as a tool and an iteration on a tool. So let me give you an example, Ali, to make it a little bit more clear what I mean. When I started in industry, people needed to write web pages by hand, right? They need to write HTML, they need to bring up their own style sheets. I don't even think JavaScript was on the scene just yet, or it was there in some nascent form, yeah? Then you fast forward a few years and we have frameworks in PHP and Java and Perl and Python, and we have JavaScript, growing up and auto-generating elements in an HTML page and auto-verifying and modifying a DOM, and having very robust actions, and then we introduced Node, and I'm just going to keep taking you further and further, right? And we introduced GoDaddy, which is an online domain hosting service that literally lets you drag and drop images and plug text in, and you never have to see HTML. And today we have, Canva, where people are making brochures as well as websites, right, at a couple clicks of a button. So when I say AI is a tool, I think of Gen AI as a tool, much like I'm talking about Canva could be used for generating an online portal. Now, it's not the best tool in the world, but it'll get it done, and it'll get it done for most people who don't know anything about technology. And that's really the key, is I really think that Gen AI has lowered the bar of entry for a number of other individuals to participate in this amazing world of technology and business. Yeah? I always think they will be software engineers. And I believe there is a strong difference between a scripter, a developer, an engineer, and an architect. And we can talk more about that as well. But I believe that software engineers and their practices and comp sci will always be required. But the number of individuals required to do those things, I don't know are going to be as necessary in the future as they are today, because the tools have improved, and as a result, our efficiency has improved. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Eric, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We have a question from Beyond Carvin, and the question is that can you share some ideas on how can startups foster a culture that supports innovation, financial prudence, and strong leadership simultaneously?
It's hard. It's hard. So first off, not all startups are, or maybe all started differently. Okay, startups come in all form and fashion. They can be self-funded, right? They can be bootstrapped, starting in a garage with no money, right? People who tend to start that way, the founders and the early employees, tend to have frugality built in because they know they're starting with nothing and they need to make every penny, every unit of currency matter. Other times, organizations are launched through some sort of investment. And these are the times when things can get dangerous. People see money coming in, they think money is limitless, they expect more money to be available in the future, they expect to be successful and to reach profitability. And those are the times when I would really encourage you to talk about being diligent and being frugal and taking notes from, again, the founders of Google, the founder Bezos from Amazon, or Apple, where, they all started literally in garages or warehouses and pinched every single unit of currency. So being clear and transparent with your organization. And again, back to the point that I made to Hamza, making sure you're hiring the right staff who are aligned with your ideals and your perspectives is super important. You'd rather get someone aligned with your ideals who needs to learn some skills with someone who has the skills you need and is completely opposite to how you want to operate. The latter will inhibit your business, if not crater it, depending on how significant their role in the organization may be. So again, I encourage you to focus on staffing, focus on communication, focus on transparency, and then trust. Trust that the people you're working with, that you can delegate authority to them, and that they're going to carry the culture forward as well. I think that's another maybe key point worth talking about for just another minute. There are so many times where leaders believe that if they're not doing it, that it's not getting done. And it's a very difficult lesson to learn, that your job as a leader isn't to tell people what to do. It's to help support them in becoming the next generation of leaders, to give them the authority and the guidance and the input so they can take on more responsibility, so that you can delegate more of the operations to them, so that it cares for itself and it scales, right? Talking about me personally, there's only so many people in a day I could talk to. But if I have 2 leaders that I trust, now we've just tripled our coverage. If I have 10 leaders I can trust, the world's our oyster. And so focusing on this and instilling it and managing it aggressively in your organization can be a key to success.
Right. Do we have any more questions? Please raise your hand. I'll leave this man once again.
Hey Eric, sorry for coming back. Apparently my question is that what's the most important role of a leader in your point of view? Like how do you see a leader being a leader? Like how do you know it's a leader in a company?
Yeah. There's a lot of great material online about effective leadership. I really like Jim Collins. I really like Vern Harnish. I think both of them have put together great, reusable, repeatable material. You can tell a good leader by how well they listen. Yeah? How well they listen. And how the organization will naturally align with what it is they're looking for, even when they're not around, demanding that they go and get that work done. A leader instills culture through supporting and fostering the team. Yeah? And there's a saying that says leadership is tossed around a lot. It's tossed around a lot, yeah? But you can't really call yourself a leader. There's a saying that says you can't call yourself a leader until you've made a leader who's made a leader. Yeah? And what you really see when you find true leaders is that it's multi-generational, it's multi-tier throughout the organization when there's truly an exceptional leader in place. There's great administrators, there's great managers, but actually the number of true leaders and facilitators and inspirational individuals by percentage across the population is much, much smaller than we talk about right now. So again, I hope that answers your question, Ali.
Yes, thank you, Eric.
Any questions? Okay, so Eric, how do you foresee the role of leadership evolving in startups over the next decade?
I don't know that there's going to be much evolution. Again, as I've already mentioned a couple of times, Jim Collins wrote a phenomenal book called Built to Last. And he, as well as a number of academics, went back and looked over organizations that existed for extended periods of time. And actually found that regardless of industry, regardless of geography, regardless of product or services, that there were core tenets that kind of stood out and exceptional leaders and businesses that truly could scale and grow. And those things have stood the test of time. I think he went back as far as, I might be wrong, the 1800s, maybe the 1700s, in terms of written records to do analysis on all these organizations. So I don't know that the role of leadership will change. Now the skill set required will absolutely change. I think that there's much more demand on startup founders as well as early leaders or managers being fiscally responsible, being technologically aware, being astute in terms of what's going on in the online ecosystem and the ebb and flow of the marketplaces and the cultural opinion. I think those things will continue to be refined. And again, I'm not enough of a futurist to look out and say it's going to be different. So the essence of leadership, the essence of organizational foundation and management, I think will stay the same. I think there'll continue to be a refined demand on finance, technology, communication, and that'll just continue to grow as we do.
Right. And Eric, what common mistakes do startups make in the early stages, like regarding financial management, technology, and leadership, and how can they avoid them?
It tends to be a belief that the product or service is needed or desired by the market without it actually being needed or desired. So I'd say first, finding a way to try and avoid market and service mismatch is a key area of focus. And then again, we've talked about it through the course of this conversation, but being very diligent about measuring everything and managing everything, inclusive of energy spent, time spent, currency spent, on the endeavors to make sure that they really truly focus on solving the customer's needs, whatever they might be, and staying very focused and diligent around those two things, at least improves the chances of success. It doesn't guarantee, but at least improves.
And how can startups measure the impact of leadership on their overall success?
I think it's a clearly demonstrable deciding factor. Having leaders, having exceptional individuals who are willing to work together and find a way to succeed, as opposed to potentially spiraling into less positive social behaviors, we'll call it, tends to make or break an organization. I think it's a pivotal factor.
And one more question, they say never meet your heroes. The question is in that particular role, what role does mentorship play in the growth and success of a startup? And how can leaders find and foster these relationships?
Sure. Awesome question. I love mentorship. I benefited at a few key points along the way in my career from having amazing mentors. And it was nothing short of an exponential growth in my own personal skill, as well as my own career. And I encourage everyone, regardless of whether they feel they need it or not, to go find a mentor. If you actually look at my profile, it's one of the things that I love doing with individuals and organizations is mentoring. I think it's foundational, and it's actually a shame that more people don't ask for that sort of help. I would also encourage people or organizations as they think about mentorship, to actually be mentored in a multifaceted way. And what I mean by that is receiving input from someone who understands your industry, your target market, your technological pursuit, whatever the case may be, is one piece of input that I think every organization should pursue. The second, though, is to get input from someone who knows nothing about your space. For example, if you go on LinkedIn and you search for Simon Sinek, I think he's an exceptional example of someone who can frankly mentor anyone on the planet, but doesn't know much about the particular areas, maybe in the technology domain, based on what I understand of his background, but could be a great addition to a technology organization, because Simon takes a very empathetic approach. He takes a very highly emotionally intelligent approach to listening to people, to watching their dynamics, and the balance of someone who knows your space and who doesn't know your space, I think are key for growth. And then in terms of finding mentors, LinkedIn's a wonderful place, Google's a wonderful place. Like I said, I also provide the services, and I'm happy to support anyone who wants to reach out that way as well. But it's really just a matter of raising your hand and looking around. You'd be surprised how many services there are out there. I encourage you, though, as you explore those, to make sure that you take the time to assess the mentor and don't just fall into a relationship. Make sure that they can provide you something, whether it be a set of experiences, and to not be afraid to kind of cycle through over time as your needs and your goals and your objectives, or the things that mentor can provide you, move into your rear view. Does it answer the question?
Yes. If we talk about technological integration, so how do startups assess the ROI of their new technology investments?
It's a lot of complicated math, I guess is what I'll say. It all depends. I'm sorry, there's just no straight answer. There are many different calculations that could be applied, depending on size of investment, depending on time horizon, market window. I'm sorry, there's just no way to answer that question.
Right. Do we have any questions? Please raise your hand.
Sorry, for coming back, but it's an interesting topic. I would like to ask you, how do you see failure and what do you think about consistency? Like if consistency is the key, then we see more than enough startups that remain consistent in their niche, but they became invaluable or they became a failure. But if we see a lot of like startups, just in case Netflix, they were not a hit, they were a until they were blockbusters. And how do you see it now?
Failure. Failure is the best way to learn. For what it's worth, I think anybody who wants to really truly succeed needs to become very comfortable with failing and accept it and actually acknowledge it as a wonderful gift. So, for me personally, I think I fail a couple of times a day. And I'll come back and I'll talk more about that. But I would say that you need to find a way to fail, but hopefully fail safely. So, for example, I am a hyper introvert. I am about as introverted as anyone can possibly be. Not that we'd know it based on what we've just done over the last 50 minutes or so. What you're seeing is the result of 25 years of meticulous experience working on myself to improve my own skills, to overcome my failures, and hopefully become a better communicator. The same is true in business. There are many different models. There are many different approaches. The same is true with technology. Interesting fact, I actually talked about this when I was on site, but there are more programming languages than there are spoken languages. We found more ways to talk to computers, but why does that matter as it relates to failure? We like to try new things, and we should try new things, and we should frankly expect those things to not work out perfectly. And I don't quite know where the idea came in somewhere along the way that every time we start something we're going to be successful, but it's a flawed assumption, and it produces a lot of frustration and friction from a psychological perspective. So accepting failure is important. Managing your failure, managing your risks is equally important. For example, no one would jump off a cliff without a parachute expecting to figure out how to fly and then hoping when they got to the ground that they get a second chance. That's an inappropriate risk. That's an inappropriate failure to attempt. Attempting failures in conversation, attempting failures in technological innovation, attempting failures in business pursuits, and making sure you're hedging and managing your risks and you're not exposing yourself too much is also super important. And then finally, without talking out of both sides of my mouth there was a quip that I heard at some point in my career that said, if you don't feel like you're right on the cusp of failure, you're not growing. And I've long used that as a measuring stick for myself to figure out if I'm super comfortable, if I'm walking into conversations, if I'm walking into business endeavors, and there's nothing that's really causing me to be anxious or uncertain of the outcome, then it's likely that I'm not extending my own skill set, and that's something that I focus on and try and work on to make sure that that doesn't happen for any extended period of time. Does that answer your question, Owen?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. There's another advice I'll take from you. What do you think is the, like in your recommendation, what are the main key aspects that you would say every entrepreneur should apply in their life?
Curiosity, perseverance, inquisitiveness, empathy, attentiveness. I could go on, but it's nothing we haven't talked about already, Ali. It's just staying very, very focused, and being passionate without being cynical or contrarian. And I don't quite know how else to put it right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If the Khalid Islami has raised his hand.
Yep. Hey, back here. Yeah. So, I mean, sorry, Eric, I just went through a bit of your profile online, and you're working with Pakistanis as well, apparently. So, forgive me for not knowing that earlier. I dropped in the middle, or maybe perhaps somewhere when the Q&A started. So, just forgive me for that. I think personally, I'm just adding to what you just said, and if you want to add on to that. What I figured, well, from my time in Pakistan, is that like from early childhood to like when you're in a university or eventually even when you're working, the most difficult part for every Pakistani has been, especially the youth, is the fear of failure, and it is probably way too buried deep inside. So your parents will tell you don't do this, and you stop. In Pakistan, the religious clerics will tell you don't do this, and that's like a perfect full stop for everything else. No more experiments. And then your teacher will tell you from primary to secondary, do what you're told to do, no need to think, and don't learn or cram what we've told you, and that's about it. So, and then all of that to inculcate the fear of failure. So if you're not a topper in your university, if you fail in your exams, then you're dead. You will not earn money, you won't have a great wife, and you will never end up with a perfect life, and you'll just forget it and maybe turn into something else. And the fear is so big. I can quote this as a weird example. There was a competition for a seat as a clerk for the Pakistan Railway, and there were 3,000 people just attempting. It's such a waste, honestly. But out of 3,000, maybe half of them could have they got ideas. Maybe they could have tried out, something new, a startup. And so when you work with Pakistanis, do you see that fear in them? And when there's a new idea, or how do they cope with it? Because this is what's been troubling me when I try to build a team. I come up with an idea, and when they want to come up with an idea, they're like, no, they put the what do you call that? The hurdles first. So their ideation process is based on hurdles. It's not like first the idea and then okay, let's see how it could be done. So have you faced something like this, and is there a way out? Always. So I've worked with individuals across North and South America, the Caribbean, Western and Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and points across Asia. So our organization has presence in both Pakistan as well as India. What I would say is it's a hyper-personalized sort of engagement, and that I believe that every person is capable of amazing success and transformation. I'm living proof. I grew up in an environment not dissimilar to exactly the sort of thing that you were just describing. Is typical for Pakistani individuals. High expectations around performance, almost insurmountable fear of failure. And again, over time, with exposure and experience, and through a very iterative process myself, I've reached a point where that's no longer the case. So, the short answer to your question is yes, there's always a solution. But, life is not like an arithmetic equation. There is not sort of one final answer for 2 plus 2 in life. Life is a bit fluid. It's a bit dynamic. And I think I'll leave the answer there. Yeah?
Right, I think our session is about to end in 3 minutes. Thank you so much, Eric, for giving us your time. And we want to hear, as Eric said, that LinkedIn is the best place to find mentors. So go on LinkedIn, find Eric Kezel, and just leave a text. So anything you would like to say or add, Eric?
No, thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure, and I hope everyone has an amazing day.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Cheers.
Yep. Cheers.
माइक
हेलो हेलो।
माइक चल रहा है।
क्वेश्चन पूछने वाला
क्वेश्चन, हाँ अगर कोई पूछना चाहता है। आप लोग यहाँ पे आ सकते हैं।
सेशन के लिए मैं उनको बता देता हूँ कि जी टाइम स्टार्ट हो गया, आप आ जाए।
अच्छा, सेशन के लिए आएंगे।
हाँ मैं आया। तो क्या है ना कि रेडी है इस पे ना सेशन का
यहाँ पे मैक्सिमम स्टार्टअप
जी मैक्सिमम कह सकते हैं, ज़्यादातर स्टार्टअप ही 80-90%।
मीन्स के बैठेंगे स्टार्टअप।
जी जी इंटर्न्स भी होंगे और स्टार्टअप भी।
असल में उस पर शो होता है ना, तो मैं थोड़ा सा कंफर्टेबल होता है। इधर फिर देखना वो चीज़ थोड़ी सी डिफिकल्ट होती है। उसके साथ लिंक नहीं हो सकता।
इसके साथ लिंक का
मैं ये क्या, अगर ये आपका लैपटॉप मुझे मिल सकता है इस जगह पे?
आप लैपटॉप इस तरीके से ले लें।
हाँ।
फिर वो स्लाइड आप आगे करके
बिल्कुल, मैं यही कह रहा हूँ कि अगर लैपटॉप आप मुझे दें।
अभी ये बैनर लगा रहा ताकि सारे आ जाएं, फिर मैं
ठीक है। पानी ज़्यादा
ये मैंने वो केबल आपके लैपटॉप पे लगा एक ही वीडियो
हो जाएगा।
मैं लगा दूँगा।
ठीक है।
प्रेजेंटेशन अभी से लगा
प्रेजेंटेशन
ये सर।
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are doing well. My name is Zia, and I am aviation instructor in training division, NESTEP, that is affiliated with Fly on Aero, Italy. I have almost more than 20 years of aviation experience, working including F-7P aircraft, the fighter aircrafts, commercial jets, helicopters, and also military cargo aircraft. Before we start today's discussion, I want to know my audience. मुझे ज़रा बताएं अपने बैकग्राउंड के बारे में कि एविएशन के बारे में आपको थोड़ा बहुत कोई आइडिया है या नहीं। ग्रुप्स बैठे हैं तो ग्रुप्स में ही बता दें, बिकॉज आपके बैकग्राउंड को देखते हुए मैं थोड़ा सा इसको एक्सप्लेन करूंगा कि प्रोपल्शन क्या है। यस प्लीज। आई थिंक कि जो ग्रुप्स बैठे हुए हैं ये एक ही उससे हैं, बैकग्राउंड से।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम. My name is Muhammad Hashir Rizwan and I am student of BS Project or Supply Chain Management. So aviation के मुतालिक little bit knowledge है क्योंकि फादर एयर फोर्स में रहे हैं तो उस बैकग्राउंड से राइट नाउ वो अभी एयरब्लू में सर्व कर रहे हैं, तो मतलब घर में डिस्कशंस वगैरह चलती रहती हैं एविएशन से रिलेटेड, तो नॉलेज है इसके बारे में।
A little knowledge about aviation.
Yes.
Okay. So please pass to the next group. यस मुझे थोड़ा सा बता दें अपने बैकग्राउंड के बारे में। मैं बेसिकली एविएशन के बारे में आपसे जानना चाह रहा हूं कि आपको कितना नाउ हाउ है एविएशन के रिलेटेड।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम. I am BS software engineering student and aviation के बारे में इतना ही knowledge है कि it's related to aircrafts and aeroplanes like. कुछ ज़्यादा knowledge.
Okay.
I'm a full stack web developer. मेरा एरोस्पेस से कोई ख़ास मुझे उसका हमारा स्टार्टअप इसी से रिलेटेड एविएशन से रिलेटेड स्टेलर लाइंस, लेकिन आई एम फुल स्टैक वेब डेवलपर दे तो मेरा इससे कोई ख़ास ताल्लुक़ नहीं है.
Okay. Anyone from your group?
My name is Larib Durrani and I am actually in NICAT as an internee. I am currently doing a BS Aviation Management from Foundation University and I have a bit of knowledge about aviation. I have completed 4 semesters and now I'm gonna go in the 5th semester.
Okay, you have a little bit knowledge about aviation. Thank you. So the last one.
Assalamualaikum. I'm Nahil Nadeem and I'm studying Business Analytics from FAST University, Islamabad. I don't have much knowledge about aerospace, so I'll get to learn today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I will try to explain all the things because almost you don't know about the background of aviation. So our topic for discussion is propulsion. Propulsion is basically the propulsive force which is used by the aircraft and this is a force which propel the aircraft forward in the air as well as on the ground. हम सिंपल अल्फाज में ये कह सकते हैं कि एयरक्राफ्ट को फ्लाई करने के लिए इस फोर्स की जरूरत प्रोपल्शन. Propulsion is generated by the force by any combination of pushing or pulling. This is basically the pushing or pulling force and which typically a rigid body but may also concern a fluid. The term propulsion basically derives from two Latin words, that is pro, which means forward or before, and the peller means a drive, that forward drive or the rearward drive or the before drive. So a propulsion system consists of a source of mechanical power and propulsor, which is a heat engine or a gas turbine engine. The aircraft required thrust. Thrust is also a propulsive force to produce enough speed for the wing to lift or enough thrust to overcome the weight of the aircraft for takeoff, and as well as for the cruise flight. Cruise flight is related to level flight. Thrust must be provided that is equal and in opposite direction of drag. Drag is basically the resistance force. This thrust or propulsive force is provided by suitable type of aircraft heat engine. Basically the source of this propulsive force is heat engine or a gas turbine engine. All heat engines have in common the ability to convert heat energy into mechanical energy by the flow of some fluid, that is generally air, through the engine. In all cases the heat energy is released at the point in the cycle where working pressure is high relative to atmospheric pressure. You can see in the picture aircraft, all of
you are familiar with this picture. But this is an unfamiliar picture, and this is a gas turbine engine or a heat engine, which is used in the aircraft, and this engine produces the propulsion or propulsive power.
बीच में अगर कोई किसी को कोई समझ ना आए तो काइंडली पूछ लिया करें.
Before we discuss the heat engine or the gas turbine engine, this engine, इस engine के अंदर काफ़ी सारे जो laws हैं gas turbine engine में, वो हम पहले discuss करते हैं. Newton law
of motion, second law of motion, third law of motion. Energy, different type of energy is used inside this engine, that is potential, mechanical, heat and kinetic energy, and the transformation of this energy. Gas laws, particularly Boyle's and Charles' law, Bernoulli's principle and the Breton cycle. First we discuss these applications. First is the Bernoulli's principle. Anyone who knows about the Bernoulli's principle? A little bit, any idea? Yes? बर्नौलीज प्रिंसिपल वेंचरी को रिप्रेजेंट करता है. दो तरह के फिनोमिना इसमें होते हैं कि इन केस द इनलेट एरिया इज लार्जर एज कंपेयर टू द एग्जिट एरिया ऑफ द फ्लूइड, द गैसेस will accelerate and its static pressure will be down, will reduce. And in the opposite case, if the outlet area is increased as compared to the inlet area, you can see here in the picture that this is a throat, a tube, a venturi, and when the gas or any fluid flows inside this tube, so when the inlet area is larger and the exit area is smaller, here the gases or any fluid accelerate. It means the dynamic pressure or velocity increases and the static pressure here, the static pressure decreases. If in opposite case, the inlet area is smaller as compared to the exit area, what will happen? The reverse will happen. Here the static pressure increases and the dynamic pressure or the velocity decreases. Bernoulli's principle is a key concept in fluid dynamics. Basically, this is the basic concept which is used in the gas turbine engine that relate pressure, speed and height, because the gas turbine engine almost play with the pressure and velocity. Bernoulli's principle states that an increase in the speed of a parcel of fluid occurs simultaneously with a decrease in either the pressure or the height of above a datum. So Bernoulli's principle can be derived from the principle of conservation of energy.
One thing to remember, that the total energy remains constant inside the tube. This is only the conversion, the transformation of energy. The static pressure is converted into dynamic pressure, or the dynamic pressure is converted into static pressure. But the total energy or the total pressure remains constant inside the system.
The next law which is applicable to the heat engine is Charles' law, which is also known as law of volume. Here, if the pressure remains constant or if the pressure kept constant, what will happen? You can see in the picture that in the first, heat is provided to a given volume and the pressure is 1 bar. If this pressure remains constant and we increase the heat, here we increase the heat, what will happen? The volume will increase. It means when the heat is provided, the gases expands. So when the pressure on a sample of dry gas is held constant, the temperature and volume will be directly proportional. When it means that one is increased, the other will also increase. The next one is Boyle's law. We are discussing these laws because these are basic laws, you know that, but we are just to touch these laws to understand the basic cycle of heat engine. And I will relate these laws to the heat engine. And what is Boyle's law? Which describes relation between pressure and volume at a constant temperature. If the temperature kept constant, now you can see in this diagram 300 Kelvin temperature is given and the pressure is 1 bar to a certain bar. So if we kept the temperature constant and increase the volume to 2 bar, the volume of the gas will reduce. Okay. It means when they are inversely proportional to each other, when one increase, the other reduce. Energy also play a big role inside the heat engine, and energy, you know, that is the capacity of doing work. Different type of energy are used inside. Basically this is the transformation of energy, the conversion of energy from one form to another. That is potential energy, kinetic energy, and the heat energy and thermal energy. In some form, some work are also performed inside the engine. Potential energy is the energy held by the object because of its position, and the kinetic energy, you know that the kinetic energy is due to motion of the body. You can see in this picture the potential energy is stored in जब ये आर्चर को खींचता है तो क्या होता है, पोटेंशियल एनर्जी स्टोर होती है, एंड व्हेन this man release the archer, the potential energy is converted into kinetic energy. Newton laws of motion, first law, second law and third law. Second and third law are related to the gas turbine engine, and it states that at any instant of time the net force on a body is equal to the body's acceleration multiplied by its mass. You know the formula, F is equal to ma, mass and acceleration. It means if we increase the mass or velocity of the object, the force is directly proportional. And the third law states that every action has a reaction which is equal in magnitude but opposite in direction. Sorry. The Breton cycle. Anybody would have any idea about this cycle? Breton cycle. Breton cycle is basically the pressure volume cycle, and just like Bernoulli's principle, it is basically used in the heat engines. The Breton cycle is the name given to the thermodynamic cycle of a gas turbine engine to produce thrust. Don't confusing thrust. Thrust is basically the propulsive force, propulsion, which propel the aircraft, which push the aircraft forward in the air. This is a variable volume constant pressure cycle of events and commonly called the constant pressure cycle. In this cycle the pressure remains constant but it plays with the volume. A more recent term is continuous combustion cycle. I will explain this continuous combustion later on. The four continuous and constant events are intake, compression, expansion, include power and exhaust. Here I will explain the cycle one by one.
the compression cycle, the first one, you can see in this diagram that the first one is the compression cycle. Here, the pressure increase in the first cycle, and what will happen to the volume? And the next cycle is combustion. Combustion means explosion, burning of gases and fuel. In the combustion, pressure remains low because this combustion happens in a confined place. So the pressure remains constant and the combustion occurs. In the third one, the exhaust section, in which the hot gases are ejected from the aircraft heat engine. And here the volume of the gases reduced. कंप्रेशन में बेसिकली क्या होता है, आगे चलते हम इसको डिटेल से डिस्कस करते हैं. इधर थोड़ा सा कंप्रेशन जो होती है, कंप्रेशन करता है, गैसेस को कंप्रेस करता है, उसके वॉल्यूम को कम कर देता है और प्रेशर को इंक्रीज करता है. कंबस्शन में एयर और फ्यूल मिक्स होता है और वहाँ पे इग्निशन से एक्सपेंशन होती है गैसेस की और pressure constant है. In the third phase, the volume reduce and the pressure will also decrease. Okay, basically this is a working 3D diagram of a gas turbine engine. The front part of this engine is called the fan and the compressor section. This is the spinner or the fan section, which is rotating part, and after this the low pressure compressor and high pressure compressor. So after the compressor section, the combustion chamber or the combustor is installed, and after the combustor, where the air fuel mixture is mixed, after the combustor, the gases flows in the turbine section. The real one is the air. This is the turbine section, and these engines drive the name gas turbine or turbojet engine from this turbine because it is installed with the turbine. So this turbine moves and it is interconnected with the compressor. It moves the compressor also. When the gases leaves this turbine section, it will eject it, expel out to the atmosphere, and as a reaction it produces the propulsion force that is called thrust, and this force is basically the propelling force of the aircraft. Here I want to take a break for a few seconds. Just look at this 3D diagram. आप ऑब्जर्व करें और मुझे बताएं कि इसमें कोई आपका क्वेश्चन है. Because once the slide is passed, the question recall. Yes. गैस का टेम्परेचर डिपेंड करता है टाइप ऑफ इंजन कि कौन से टाइप का. जेट इंजन में क्या होगा? जेट इंजन में हाई टेम्परेचर हर एक में हाई, लेकिन हर एक इंजन की रेटिंग Okay, I will explain. Yes. Ambient air जो है, atmospheric air is drawn into the compressor at ambient temperature. But here in the compressor, because we already discussed the Boyle's law and Charles law, that what will happen inside this. Here the pressure increase. यहाँ पे compressor में क्या होता है? Compression होती है, वॉल्यूम कम होता है. जब वॉल्यूम कम होता है तो टेम्परेचर इंक्रीज स्लाइडली. अब जब टेम्परेचर इंक्रीज होता है उसके बाद कंबस्टर और कंबस्टन चैम्बर इज लोकेटेड हियर आफ्टर द कंप्रेसर सेक्शन. Here the fuel is mixed with the air and ignition is provided. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे combustion होती है, basically fire जिसको आप कहें, ठीक है, और उसके टेम्परेचर राइज ऑलमोस्ट यहाँ पे 1800 to 22,000 डिग्री सेल्सियस टेम्परेचर इस एरिया combustion टरबाइन का जो टेम्परेचर होता है वो 1000 एवरेज टेम्परेचर है, 1000 डिग्री सेल्सियस, बिकॉज टरबाइन एक मूविंग पार्ट है। तो जो कंबस्टिव चैम्बर है इसमें कूलिंग गैसेस स्प्रे की जाती है ताकि वो जो गैसेस का टेम्परेचर है उसको कम किया जा सके।
सो नाउ जो आपका क्वेश्चन था, अभी बढ़ते हैं मेन पार्ट्स की तरफ से, वन बाय वन वी विल डिस्कस द मेन पार्ट्स ऑफ दिस गैस टरबाइन इंजन और द हीट इंजन। डिफरेंट इसके नाम है जो कि हम लेटर ऑन डिस्कस करेंगे। The main parts of a jet engine include, the first one is air inlet duct or air intake, the next is compressor section, the third one is combustion chamber, and the fourth one is turbine section, and the last is exhaust section. Air inlet duct. As you see in the picture, the air inlet duct is the front section of the heat engine or the gas turbine engine. The air is drawn from the atmosphere inside this air intake. The shape of this air intake is just like a divergent duct. Anybody knows about the divergent duct? The concept about the divergent duct? Yes, there again the balloon is basically applies. We already discussed that this is a divergent duct. Early stage पे जो हमने डिस्कस किया था कि when inlet area is smaller as compared to the exit area, but will happen. The pressure increase here and velocity decrease. So the shape of this air inlet duct is just like a divergent duct. Here the pressure, the static pressure increase and the velocity decrease. This is another phenomena which is used in the supersonic aircraft. जो supersonic aircraft है या airplane है, वहाँ पे जो phenomena discuss होता है, apply होता है, वो है convergent supersonic section followed by a divergent because of the fluid thermodynamics. The next one is compressor section. Compressor section is located behind the intake section. And what the compressor do? The compressor section compress the air, increase the pressure and increase the temperature of the air. The compressor section of a gas turbine engine performs critical functions. Its primarily function is to supply air in sufficient quantity to satisfy the requirement of the combustion burners. Specifically, to fulfill its purpose, the compressor must increase the pressure of the mass of air received from the air inlet and then discharge it to the burner in the quantity and the pressure required, because we required a pressurized gas inside the combustion chamber. Some other function the compressor will do, and I know you will be familiar with these functions. जो compressor है उसकी सेकेंडरी फंक्शन में ये आता है कि एयर कंडीशनिंग में एयरक्राफ्ट में होती है। When you travel in the aircraft or airplane, एयर कंडीशनिंग होती है, वो कंप्रेसर सेक्शन से एयर प्रेशराइजेशन ऑल्सो इसी का पार्ट है। प्रेशराइजेशन के लिए भी एयर यहाँ से ली जाती है, एंड फॉर एंटी आइसिंग. Anti-icing is a function to defreeze the ice when the ice formation occurred on the wings or the aircraft structure. The combustion chamber is located behind the compressor section. Combustion chamber में
स्टेगनेंट एयर चाहिए, ऑलमोस्ट स्टेगनेंट, जिसका स्टैटिक प्रेशर ज़्यादा हो और जिसकी वेलोसिटी बिल्कुल कम हो, बिकॉज here we have to include the fuel and to form a correct air fuel mixture. यहाँ पे कैरोसिन, बेसिकली जो एविएशन फ्यूल है वो कैरोसिन है. कैरोसिन स्प्रे किया जाता है इनसाइड द प्रेशराइज गैसेस. ओके, लेट मी एक्सप्लेन वन थिंग, बिकॉज कैरोसिन और गैसोलीन मिक्स किया जाता है. ये है गैस टरबाइन. जो स्मॉल इंजन होते हैं या जो गाड़ियों के इंजन होते हैं वो होते हैं पिस्टन इंजन, जो सेस्ना और छोटे एयरप्लेन में यूज़ होते हैं, 2 सीटर में, 4 सीटर में, वो पिस्टन इंजन होते हैं. उनका फिनोमेना बिल्कुल डिफरेंट होता है, बिकॉज दे हैव रेसिप्रोकेटिंग मोशन और ये रोटरी इंजन, तो इसलिए उसके साथ इसको मिक्स नहीं करना. जो गाड़ी का इंजन है दैट इज़ टोटली डिफरेंट फ्रॉम दिस इंजन. यस, ये जो सेक्शन है कंप्रेसर, ठीक है, कंप्रेसर इज द रोटेटिंग पार्ट, दिस इज द रोटेटिंग पार्ट. ओके, सो व्हेन द ब्लेड्स रोटेट्स इट कंप्रेस द एयर, इट सक्स द एयर फ्रॉम द एटमॉस्फेयर एंड कंप्रेस इट, increase the temperature, increase the pressure and deliver it to the combustion. इसकी स्टेजेस, ये आप यहाँ पे देखिए कि फ्रंट स्टेज के ब्लेड्स बड़े होते हैं और रेयर की तरफ ये छोटे होते जाते हैं. तो जब ये कंप्रेसर टर्न करता है इसकी डिफरेंट स्टेजेस होती हैं, 12 स्टेजेस के भी होते हैं, 14 स्टेजेस के भी होते हैं, ठीक है. तो जब ये इसमें से पास होती है, इसके अंदर से एयर पास होती है तो वो कंप्रेस हो जाता है, जो एटमॉस्फेरिक है, इसकी अपनी कंप्रेशन रेशो होती है, ठीक है. और वो प्रेशराइज एयर यहाँ पे देखिए, ये जब प्रेशराइज करता है एयर को तो वो प्रेशराइज एयर फिर कंबस्शन चैम्बर में, तो कंबस्शन चैम्बर में जो एयर होती है ऑलमोस्ट वो हाई प्रेशराइज एयर होती है, और स्टेगनेंट होती है, मीन्स कि प्रेशर उसका इतना ज़्यादा होता है कि वो रेडी होती है एयर फ्यूल मिक्सचर बनाने के लिए।
I know you have idea about the piston engine. अब piston engine को basically इससे relate करना बड़ा मुश्किल होता है,
Because totally it is different from piston engine. This engine is totally different from piston engine. Because the purpose of this engine is to produce propulsion, is to produce thrust. And
जो piston engine है वो itself thrust produce नहीं कर सकता. So here in the combustion section houses the combustion process which raise the temperature of the air passing through the engine. This process release energy contained in the air fuel mixture. यहाँ पे एक proper ratio से air fuel mixture बनता है, that is 15:1 or 20:1. 15% air and 1% fuel. And when this air fuel mixture is formed, at this time a high ignition is provided by the igniter plugs, and this air fuel mixture will explode. So the combustion take place inside the combustion chamber.
सर ये एक सवाल मैं पूछना है।
जी जी, yes.
ये फाइटर जेट जो होते हैं F-16 और इनका और इनका जो इंजन और वो होते हैं वो सेम होते हैं?
ये सेम होते हैं, मैं आगे बताऊंगा इसको थोड़ा सा, ठीक है। इसको मैं जितने भी टाइप्स हैं वो लेटर ऑन मैं आपको बता दूंगा कि जो फाइटर जेट्स हैं, जो कमर्शियल जेट्स हैं, जो कार्गो एयरक्राफ्ट हैं और जितने भी एयरक्राफ्ट हैं उसमें कौन से इंजन यूज होते हैं। यस, air fuel mixture is formed, not air fuel mixture is formed inside the combustion chamber, and at that time the ignition will provided. The primary function of the combustion section is of course to burn the fuel air mixture, thereby adding heat energy to the air. एयर फ्यूल मिक्सचर जब यहाँ पे बर्न होता है, because the temperature of these gases are very high, they are about 1800 to 2000 degree Celsius. यहाँ पे टेम्परेचर बहुत हाई होता है, इसलिए यहाँ पे कूलिंग एयर, एक एक्स्ट्रा एयर प्रोवाइड की जाती है ताकि जो हॉट गैसेस है उसका टेम्परेचर कम किया जा सके, ताकि वो टरबाइन में एंट्री के लिए स्मूथ हो. So now at the last, deliver these hot gases to the turbine section. Inside the combustion chamber, fuel is sprayed as already we discussed, and air is mixed with the fuel and ignition is provided. So this is the construction of a combustion chamber. A real combustion chamber is look like that picture, and this is basically what happened and the parts of the combustion chamber. The air from the compressor enter in the combustion chamber through this primary orifice, and the diffuser section which further reduce the pressure of these gases. This is the igniter plug. Through the igniter plug we provide the ignition to the air fuel mixture and fuel injector. All these are located inside the combustion chamber. The fuel nozzles or fuel injectors, the ignition plug and the air. Now the turbine is located behind the combustion chamber, and this is the main part of a turbojet engine or a gas turbine engine. इसको नाम इसीलिए गैस टर्बाइन या टर्बोजेट कहा जाता है because it drives the turbine and turbine drives all the engine, the compressor and other accessories. The turbine transforms a portion of kinetic energy or velocity into a mechanical motion because
जब हॉट गैसेस हीट करती है टरबाइन के ऊपर एक प्रॉपर एंगल से, तो वो काइनेटिक एनर्जी ऑफ गैसेस है, बिकॉज पोटेंशियल एनर्जी ऑफ ए फ्लूइड इज कन्वर्टेड इनटू काइनेटिक एनर्जी के बारे में मैंने हमने डिस्कस किया. द पोटेंशियल एनर्जी ऑफ ए फ्लूइड इज कन्वर्टेड इनटू काइनेटिक एनर्जी, and these high kinetic energy gases hits the turbine and rotate the turbine, because here the kinetic energy is converted into mechanical energy or mechanical motion of the turbine, and when the turbine rotates, it further rotates the compressor, because this turbine is interconnected with this shaft to the compressor.
The turbine assembly consists of two basic elements. One is the inlet guide vanes. These are the stator parts of the turbine, and the turbine blades are rotating parts, one by one. Stages, जैसे compressor में हमने stages discuss की, compressor में stator stage, फिर rotor, फिर stator और दूसरे बार rotor. इसी तरह turbine में भी stages होती हैं, stator vanes and rotor blades. The turbine inlet nozzle vanes are located directly off of the combustion chamber and immediately forward of the turbine wheel. Stator vanes इसलिए forward location पे लगाई जाती हैं ताकि जो incoming gases है उसको एक proper uniform flow दे सके जो blades हैं, जो turbine rotor blades हैं. So the turbine inlet temperature must be controlled or damage will occur to the turbine inlet vanes.
पहले जिस तरह हमने combustion chamber में discuss किया, हमने cooling air provide हो जाती है कि turbine blades जो है वो damage ना हो.
The turbine section is interconnected through a shaft with the compressor section.
This is the turbine section. When the hot gases drive this turbine drive the compressor, because these are interconnected with the shaft.
About 60% of the gases energy consumed here.
60% जो गैसेस की एनर्जी है, जो काइनेटिक एनर्जी है, वो यहाँ पे कंज्यूम हो जाती है टू रोटेट द टरबाइन.
The last one is the exhaust section, and
You might see this when the fighter plane flies. You can see these gases when expel out from the rear of the aircraft.
The exhaust section is mounted behind the turbine section, and it is consist of several components, but the component have individual process. They also have one common function. They must direct the flow of the hot gases in rearward direction.
Again, Bernoulli's principle applies here. All the laws we discussed earlier are applicable to this engine. Now we again apply the Bernoulli's principle here. And what is the Bernoulli's principle? When the inlet area is larger as compared to the exit area, what will happen to the pressure of gases? Here, the velocity of the gases increase and the static pressure decreases. So the shape of the exhaust nozzle or the jet nozzle is just like a conversion duct. So when the gases expel out or ejected from this exhaust nozzle, the velocity, it will accelerate and the pressure reduces here.
Bernoulli's principle describes the relationship between the flow velocity of the fluid and its pressure. An increase in velocity leads to reduction in static pressure, which is applicable here. The total pressure, remember, the total pressure of the system remains constant, because here the conversion of the energy take place, the static pressure and dynamic pressure. So here also applies the Newton third law, second law of motion and third law. Second law कैसे यहाँ पे applicable है? Because हमने दो चीजें पढ़ी हैं कि engine के अंदर, inside this engine, the air fuel mixture is formed, ignited and pushed here. So अगर हम fuel बढ़ाते हैं या air बढ़ाते हैं तो इसकी speed बढ़ती है, mass of air or velocity. Second law of motion is F is equal to ma, means mass flow rate of the air or the increase the velocity. दोनों फ्यूल की जो भी बढ़ाते हैं, in other words, अगर हम फ्यूल की क्वांटिटी बढ़ाते हैं या एयर की क्वांटिटी बढ़ाते हैं, so the speed of the aircraft increase, the propulsion force will be increased. And the Newton third law, when the high velocity jet ejected into the atmosphere, what will happen? The reaction force is produced. When a high velocity jet is ejected in the atmosphere through the exhaust nozzle, a reaction force is produced which push the aircraft forward, and that force is called the propelling force or the propulsion. I think you have a little bit idea about how the propulsion force is produced through a jet engine. Now we discuss the types of gas turbine engine. There are different types of gas turbine. आपका भी क्वेश्चन इसमें वो हो जाएगा, ठीक है. The one we discuss here is the pure turbojet engine. In the turbojet engine, the compressor, combustion chamber, turbine and the exhaust nozzle is installed. और ये engine अभी rarely use होते हैं. These engines are used in specific military aircraft. जो fighter aircraft है, वहाँ पे turbojet these engines. और जो हमने अभी discuss, this is a pure turbojet engine. Because this is not an economical engine. The second one is turbofan engine. Turbofan engine is mostly used in commercial jets. Commercial airliner के लिए उसमें turbofan engine use, because these engines are more economical as compared to turbojet engine. The third one is turboprop engine. Turboprop engine, the principle of turboprop engine is the same just like the other turbine engine. It will have also compressor, combustion chamber, turbine and exhaust nozzle. But an additional component is installed, that is a reduction gearbox, and at the front propeller. This is a propeller driven engine. And these engines are mostly used in the cargo planes. जितने भी cargo planes हैं या short route के planes हैं, उसमें turboprop engine use किए जाते हैं. The fourth one is turboshaft engine. Turboshaft engine is just like turboprop. It has compressor, combustion chamber, turbine and exhaust nozzle, but it rotates the main rotor of the helicopter. ये इंजन हेलीकॉप्टर में यूज होता है, टर्बोशैफ्ट इंजन.
इसमें ऐसा सबसे ज़्यादा पावरफुल जेट वाला होगा सर?
नो, टर्बोफैन. So a pure turbojet engine, now we discuss shortly the pure turbojet engine, is an air-breathing jet engine which is typically used in aircraft. It consists of a gas turbine with a propelling nozzle which produce the thrust. The gas turbine has an air inlet which include inlet guide vanes, a compressor, combustion chamber and turbine. Just like we discussed earlier, these sections, ये सारे इसमें include होते हैं. And exhaust nozzle. And these engines are used in fighter plane, most of the fighter plane, because fighter plane में हमें economy इतनी नहीं focus करनी होती जितना कि manufacturer mission पे focus करता है. So here the economy is no matter, it is used in the fighter planes. Nowadays fighter plane also use the bypass engine because they are more economical. The other one is a turbofan engine. In turbofan engine, you can see in this diagram, हमने earlier जो discuss किया था, compressor section, inlet, compressor section, combustion chamber and turbine section. इसके अंदर भी यही है, but an additional ducted fan is installed inside this engine, which bypass the main airflow. And here no burning occurs. यहाँ पे कोई burning नहीं होती, इसलिए जो mass of air है हम इस engine में वो बढ़ा देते हैं. तो इसकी वजह से इसकी जो propulsive force है, जो propulsion है, वो बढ़ जाती है. These engines are mostly used in the commercial jets, in the airliner. A turbofan or a fan jet is a type of air-breathing jet engine that is widely used in aircraft propulsion. The word turbofan is a combination of preceding generation engine technology of the turbojet and a reference to additional fan stages. यहाँ पे जो fan stages है, because in pure turbojet engine fan वहाँ पे नहीं होता, वहाँ पे डायरेक्टली कंप्रेसर होता है, जो कि हमने डिस्कस किया. इसमें यहाँ पे इन फ्रंट आपका कंप्रेसर एक फैन लगा दिया जाता है, दैट इज अ लार्जर, दैट हैव अ लार्जर डायमीटर. It consists of a gas turbine engine which achieve mechanical energy from combustion and ducted fan. The uses of this mechanical energy from the gas turbine to force air rearward. The same principle as of the jet engine. Thus, whereas all the air taken in by a turbojet passes through the combustion chamber and turbine, this is the main difference, because in the jet engine, all the air drawn into the engine goes through the compressor, the combustion chamber and the turbine. But here, some air goes inside the compressor and for the other purposes. But 75% of the air bypass the engine. That is not mixed with the fuel and not burned. So this 75% of air includes in the thrust at the rear of this engine. A turbofan thus can be thought of as a turbojet being used to drive a ducted fan, with both of these contributing to the thrust. The next one is turboprop. Turboprop is just like turbojet engine. It also has intake, a compressor, combustion chamber and a turbine with the addition of reduction gearbox. इसके फ्रंट पे एक reduction gearbox लगा दिया जाता है जो कि प्रोपेलर को ड्राइव करता है. This is just like a gas turbine engine or turbojet engine, but it drives the propeller. And here the maximum energy extracted here in the turbine section. इसका टर्बाइन इस तरह का डिज़ाइन होता है कि मैक्सिमम जो एनर्जी है, बिकॉज जेट इंजन में प्रोपल्सिव फोर्स जो है वो इंजन प्रोड्यूस करता है, बट इन दिस टर्बोप्रॉप इंजन थ्रस्ट इज प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय द प्रोपेलर.
Thrust production जो है, जो propulsion है, that is produced by the propeller,
not by the engine. So the engine is not contributing regarding the thrust. Engine is installed only to drive this propeller
through the gearbox, the reduction gearbox. The purpose of this reduction gearbox
is to reduce the RPM and increase the torque, because the propeller required larger torque to turn, to rotate. So a turboprop consists of all the parts that is a pure jet engine have, but additionally with a propeller and reduction gearbox. The same process applies here. The air enter into the intake section, goes through the compressor, mix with the fuel inside the combustion chamber, ignite. Ignition is provided here, and the air-fuel mixture explodes. And the hot gases hits the turbine, it rotates the turbine, but here the maximum energy extracted from the hot gases. And this turbine is responsible to rotate the compressor as well as the propeller section. The exhaust gases do not provide enough power to create significant thrust, since all of the thrust is generated by the propeller. And just like this phenomena, the turbo shaft that is installed in helicopter. हेलीकॉप्टर के अंदर जो इंजन गैस टर्बाइन इंजन यूज़ होता है वो भी सेम फंक्शन करता है. दैट इंक्लूड्स अ कंप्रेसर इनटेक सेक्शन, कंप्रेसर सेक्शन, combustion chamber, turbine and exhaust nozzle. But that engine rotates the main rotor. Here is a picture of the indication system, because there are different configuration of the engine installed on the aircraft, different aircraft with different engines installed. Just like if we suppose the example of A320, Airbus A320, जो A320 है या बोइंग है, उसके ऊपर डिफरेंट इंजन इंस्टॉल्ड है. नंबर ऑफ इंजन डिफरेंट है, 2 हो सकते हैं, 3, 4 हो सकते हैं इस कन्फिगरेशन में. तो जो इंडिकेशन सिस्टम है वो यहाँ पे डिस्प्ले होगा. पर्टिकुलरली these multi-function displays जो MFDs है, यहाँ पे वो डिस्प्ले करते हैं अपनी इंडिकेशंस. कौन सी इंडिकेशंस यहाँ पे आती है जो कि इंजन के रिलेटेड पायलट को चाहिए होती है, जो पायलट कॉकपिट में ऑब्जर्व करता है. दैट इज रिलेटेड टू प्रेशर, टेम्परेचर, ऑयल प्रेशर एंड ऑयल टेम्परेचर, इंजन की स्पीड, फ्यूल फ्लो. ये सारी इंडिकेशन पायलट के सामने MFD जो मल्टी फंक्शन डिस्प्ले है वहाँ पे आ रही है. सो दिस पैनल इज इंस्टॉल्ड इन द सेंटर ऑफ पायलट एंड को पायलट. जो पायलट और को पायलट की कन्फिग्रेशन है लेफ्ट और राइट, ये सेंटर में ये जो इंजन, दिस इज कॉल्ड द इंजन इंस्ट्रूमेंट पैनल, द गैस टर्बाइन इंजन इंस्ट्रूमेंट पैनल. All of the gas turbine indications are displayed here. So, we discussed the propulsion in today's discussion. Here, recap is the first section of this gas turbine engine is air intake. The second one is the compressor. Air enter into the air intake. Compressor compress the gases, increase the temperature and reduce the velocity of the gases. From here, these gases delivered to the combustion chamber. Inside the combustion chamber, the fuel is added to this pressurized air and a proper air-fuel mixture with the correct ratio is formed.
and here the ignition, a high voltage ignition is provided, and suddenly this air fuel mixture burns, explodes, and it accelerates toward to the rear wall. At the rear of the combustion chamber, the turbine section is installed. These accelerated gases hits the turbine. Here the kinetic energy of the gases converted into mechanical motion of the turbine. The turbine rotates, and when this turbine rotates, it also coupled with this compressor section, and it rotates the compressor also. About 60% of the gases energy extracted here in the turbine section, and the remaining 40% of the energy goes to the exhaust section. The exhaust section is shaped just like a convergent duct, where we apply the Bernoulli principle, and here the gases, the pressure of the gases reduce and the velocity increase. And when the high velocity jet or the high velocity gases ejected from this turbine nozzle, what will happen? A reaction force is produced, and that is called the propulsive force, the propulsion or the thrust, and that is the outcome of this engine which propel the aircraft in the air as well as on the ground. वो वीडियो चलाएंगे, वो चलाएंगे. Now I have a short clip, a short video clip for you. So मैं और आपको और नहीं करना चाहता, because your background is different. Have you completed your aviation management? Okay. The sound is. Now this is a short video clip which will further explain the idea, the phenomena of the gas turbine, that how we can propulsive forces produced in the gas turbine.
You get that, boys? What is it?
Just another narrow-body aircraft.
My atoms are shaking. Strange. It sounds far, but I bet my last proton beast is much closer than you think. Hold on, people. It's a LEAP-powered aircraft. A leap into the unknown. What on earth is a leap? Something you sure haven't seen before. Everybody get ready. We're going in.
Someone please tell me what just happened? Sure. The engine makes a plane move forward. Thrust is produced by air being pulled in by the fan blades. Then this air is ejected at greater speed through the exhaust, creating the required pushing force. This is a principle of Newton's law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So how is this possible?
Gentle souls, come with me to the bypass. Extreme sport freaks, with me, we'll hit the compressors, combustor, and turbines.
The LEAP is a high bypass ratio engine, which means that a large amount of air bypasses the core of the engine to be ejected directly into the exhaust stream. The fan acts like a propeller. Its curved rotating blades accelerate the airflow into the engine. Lighter composite materials provide better efficiency and resistance.
Here come the compressors. Get ready. Things are gonna heat up.
Yes.
Feel that? It's the low-pressure compressors squeezing us. Now, the high-pressure compressors. You're gonna feel the difference.
Ultra-efficient compressors deliver optimum air pressure and temperature conditions for combustion.
It's rising up now. Let's get toasted! Gentlemen, meet your kerosene counterparts. These guys are gonna light up your day.
Already?
Now these particles
We usually mingle inside.
Not anymore.
I thought there'd be more of you.
Normally, yes, but in this engine, fewer of us are needed.
This little kerosene particle is right. The LEAP engine burns less fuel than former engines. In addition, the fuel nozzles mix fuel and air before they enter the combustor, creating a homogeneous mixture that minimizes the peak temperature during combustion. This technology significantly reduces emissions.
Okay, let's go.
The combustion chamber. This is the heart of the engine, where energy is created through combustion of fuel and compressed air.
Are you ready? Here comes the final blast. What a boost! Where are we now? Turbines. Let's transfer our energy to them. This is the last extreme stage before we join the SOP team. Enjoy.
Advanced material and aerodynamics make the turbines much more efficient and durable. The pressure and speed of the hot gases provide the force needed to turn the turbines and its shaft, which in turn drives the compressor and fan.
Come on, guys, don't hang around. We alone are responsible for 90% of the thrust from this baby. Here come those adrenaline junkies. So, how was it? Fast, hot, and fantastic.
What a trip! Are you kidding me? It was us in the primary flow that did most of the job.
Not exactly, kid. It's teamwork. We definitely need each other. We provided the energy to drive the engine, and they provided most of the thrust to make the aircraft move forward.
Hey, boss. Sounds like we're in luck today.
You said it. It's game on again, boys. Let's go.
ये वाला ऑन कर दो.
So I think what
Yes, if anybody have any question, please ask.
थैंक यू. अभी जो ये लास्ट आप एनिमेशन दिखा रहे थे जिसमें ये पार्टिकल्स मूव कर रहे थे और अभी भी जो इन आउट बाहर जो एयर जा रहा है, when I think of the blades और उनकी स्पेसिफिक एक कर्वेचर भी नज़र आ रहा है, तो isn't it what I'm seeing is कि शायद वो पार्टिकल्स जो स्ट्रेट दिखाने जाते हैं वो स्ट्रेट नहीं जा रहे, इंजन के अंदर वो रोटेट करते रहते हैं फास्ट स्पीड में और वो एनिमेशन में ठीक नहीं दिखाया है.
Between the compressor section and the combustion chamber, a straightener is installed, which straightens this gas flow. Because यहाँ पे movement होती है वो turbulent होती है, तो यहाँ पे एक straightener diffuser लगाया जाता है, जो कि इन particles को smooth line करता है straightener. You are right.
और सर वो जो आप शाफ्ट वाली बात कर रहे थे हेलीकॉप्टर वाली, आई थिंक अब वो उसके साथ साथ ये फ्रिगेट वगैरह में भी अब इस्तेमाल हो रहे हैं. जो टर्बो जेट्स की आप बात कर रहे थे ना, तो विद जो चार आप टाइप आपने बताया था, उसमें जो शाफ्ट वाला है वो फ्रिगेट के, क्योंकि पीछे उसके प्रोपेलर को उन्होंने, इट्स द अदर वे ऑफ यूजिंग इट इंस्टेड कि जैसे एयरप्लेन में प्रोपेलर तो बाहर है आगे की तरफ है टू पुट द एयर पुश द एयर बैकवर्ड्स, बट ऑन फ्रिगेट्स when जैसे LM2500 है, तो वो जब आप यूज़ करते हैं तो the engine takes the air and but then uses the shaft to move, push the frigate forward. जी बिल्कुल.
something critical. We say advanced. मैं आज जो प्रोडक्शन है वो बेसिक concept. Yes, anyone else?
I can continue. I mean, मुझे तो बहुत ज़बरदस्त सब्जेक्ट है ये propulsion का. It's very exciting.
Is basically
Yeah, yeah. अगर किसी और ने सवाल नहीं पूछा तो I can continue if you want. You know, it would be interesting to understand कि अब जैसे आपने ये engines के types बताए हैं, and then so controlling this for example VTOL, अब एक तो सीधी का है तो उसमें कैसे ये apply हो रहा होता है? Do you actually control the nozzle to point downwards? फिर उसके counter forces क्या apply होते हैं? It's very interesting.
माय नेम इज़ उमैर असलम. अच्छा, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि जो वर्टिकल टेक ऑफ एयरक्राफ्ट्स होते हैं, जिस तरह F-35 का जो वर्टिकल टेक ऑफ मोड होता है F-35B वेरिएंट का, तो वो किस तरीके से वर्क करता है? बिकॉज अब वो तो आपका वर्टिकल में आ जाता है, उसमें एयर इनटेक तो नहीं हो रही होती ना, तो उससे रिलेटेड मतलब आप थोड़ा सा एनलाइटन कर दें.
ओके, गुड क्वेश्चन है. इसमें वर्टिकल टेक ऑफ में बेसिकली डाइवर्टिंग द नोजल, जो एग्जॉस्ट नोजल है, बेसिकली द थ्रस्ट प्रोड्यूसर, जो हमने इसमें पढ़ा है कि एग्जॉस्ट नोजल जो है ये थ्रस्ट प्रोड्यूस करती है. यहाँ से स्पीडी जेट्स निकल रहे हैं, तो यहाँ से जो फोर्स निकल रही है, जेट निकल रही है इन डायरेक्शन ऑफ दैट फोर्सेस, द थ्रस्ट इज क्रिएटेड, प्रोपल्शन इज क्रिएटेड. वहाँ पे क्या होता है कि ये जो नोजल होते हैं ये डाइवर्ट कर देते हैं नीचे. इसका जो फ्लो होता है, जैसे थ्रस्ट उसका फ्लो डाउनवर्ड है, वो उसका फिनोमेना काफ़ी बड़ा है, लेकिन जस्ट फॉर योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग वो उसका जो फ्लो ऑफ गैस है वो डाइवर्ट हो डाउन. जैसे हेली नीचे को पुश करता है थ्रू रोटर और अपवर्ड थ्रस्ट हेली, तो उसमें भी बेसिकली लिफ्ट प्रोड्यूस की जाती है जेट.
मुझे ये जानना था कि क्या इसकी कोई ऐसी टेस्टिंग या कोई सिमुलेशन मौजूद है जिससे ये टेस्ट किया जा सकता हो, CFD हो या कुछ किसी भी मेथड से, कि जैसे एक तो हो गया आप एक लार्ज इंजन, जायंट साइज्ड इंजन जिससे आप ठीक है कमर्शियल एयरप्लेन भी चला रहे हैं या जेट फाइटर जेट्स भी उड़ा रहे हैं, कैन दीज बी रीसाइज्ड इनटू मल्टीपल स्मॉल जेट्स एंड देन वो जो है वो इक्वल थ्रस्ट दे रहा हो या उससे ज़्यादा थ्रस्ट दे रहा हो? ऐसी कोई चीज़ सिमुलेट की जा सकती है? वजह मैं आपको बता देता हूँ. आपने देखा होगा कि ये I mean, I'll quote something which is obviously sci-fi related, मगर ये जैसे Iron Man है, अब we see this happening. Can this actually be done like an exoskeleton with jet engines across, ताकि आप अपने आप को कंट्रोल कर सकें? I mean, वो तो feedback control system साथ लगेगा, वो तो बहुत कुछ है, but resizing this yet still having the equal amount of thrust needed, ये possible है क्या resize करने से? इसके ऊपर कोई टेस्टिंग हुई भी है?
Thank you.
सर ये जब ये स्पेसिफिकली जेट की बात करते हैं, जेट इंजन्स की, और सो फॉर एग्जांपल मैं एग्जांपल दे देता हूँ कि अगर अभी हमारे पास JF-17 है, परहैप्स इसके वेरिएंट्स आते हैं, या इसका और कोई हम नेक्स्ट जनरेशन के जहाज़ बनाना शुरू कर देते हैं, how much of system engineering and what types of stages are involved in the, क्योंकि बज़ाहिर तो जेट लगा ठीक है, हो सकता है इतने लोग हों, मगर आई एम श्योर इसके मल्टीपल डिपार्टमेंट्स होंगे ताकि उस, और फिर उसकी एक सिस्टम इंटीग्रेशन हो रही होती है, तो क्या है, इफ़ यू कुड वॉक अस थ्रू समथिंग लाइक दिस? जैसे आई थिंक इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग F-36 सेबर जो था, वो आप एक लिहाज से आप रॉकेट पे ही बैठे होते थे, आप इंजन पे ही जेट इंजन में बैठ के उड़ा रहे उसे जी। एक आखिरी सवाल मेरी तरफ से फिलहाल, सो दिस इज मे बी अ लिटिल टेक्निकल, मगर ये मोर रिलेटेड टू जो खबरें अक्सर आ रही होती है कि जी कमर्शियल जेट जो है वो फ्लाई करने लगा था, एयरपोर्ट पे वो बर्ड अटैक हुआ या कुछ, एंड देन यू नो समथिंग गॉट स्टक इन दी जेट एयर दी जेट इंजन, तो वो उसकी वजह से दे हैड टू स्टॉप द फ्लाइट। अब वो कैसे व्हाट हैपेंस, क्या बर्ड जाके अंदर यू नो क्या कर जाता है, वो हवा रोक देता है, क्या होता है ये चीज़? एंड अगर इजाज़त दें, प्लस ये कि स्पेशली एयरपोर्ट के आसपास अगर काइट्स फ्लाई कर रहे हो या कचरा होता है तो वो भी मना किया जाता है, क्योंकि अपेरेंटली दिस विल सक इन व्हाटएवर इज इन द एयर, कोई फिल्टर तो उस तरह से है नहीं है, तो सर प्लीज़।
बड़े कैटास्ट्रॉफिक इफेक्ट होते हैं इसमें, बिकॉज जो कंप्रेसर है इसकी स्पीड होती है अराउंड 13 to 14,000 RPM रेवोल्यूशन पर मिनट। सो यहाँ पे अगर एयर भी स्टेबल नहीं होगी तो कंप्रेसर डैमेज हो जाता। आप ये कह रहे हैं कि अगर आप 2 ग्राम का जो नट है या बोल्ट है वो इस पूरे इंजन को डैमेज करेगा। बर्ड में काफ़ी सो एक छोटी सी बर्ड होती है वो उसको कहते हैं फॉरेन ऑब्जेक्ट डैमेज। वो जब इस कंप्रेसर को हिट करती है, क्योंकि कंप्रेसर तो कमर्शियल जेट्स हैं, फाइटर जेट्स हैं, टर्बोप्रॉप है, सब में जेट इंजन लगता है। तो जब जेट इंजन के अंदर कोई भी चीज़ जाएगी जो उस इंजन का हिस्सा नहीं, इट विल डैमेज करेगा बिकॉज ऑफ द फ्लो ऑफ वेरी हाई फ्लो। जो गैसेज है इसके अंदर जो भी कंप्रेशन हो रही है वो सबको डिस्टर्ब है, क्योंकि हाई स्पीड में आपको पता है कि किसी चीज़ का भी इम्पैक्ट होता है। तो इसलिए एयरफोर्स एयरफोर्स के वर्ड्स उसको बहुत ज़्यादा
जी सर, इन ब्लेड्स का मटेरियल क्या होता होगा, क्योंकि ये तो बहुत आई मीन टेम्परेचर आई एम असूमिंग दिस वुड बी वेरी हॉट इनसाइड, तो ये जो इंडिविजुअल ब्लेड्स हैं इनकी कोई लाइफ भी होती होगी कि यकीन इसके बाद फिर ये चेंज कर दें?
ये जो कंप्रेसर ब्लेड होते हैं इसको इंजन का कोल्ड पार्ट कहते हैं। दिस इज द कोल्ड पार्ट ऑफ द इंजन बिकॉज हियर द बर्निंग नॉट। यहाँ पे कंबस्टिंग चैम्बर के बाद टरबाइन इधर इंस्टॉल है। टरबाइन में बहुत ज़्यादा टेम्परेचर होता है, ऑलमोस्ट यहाँ पे 1000 to 1200 डिग्री सेल्सियस टेम्परेचर होता है। सो इसके जो ब्लेड्स होते हैं वो डिफरेंट होते हैं फ्रॉम द कंप्रेसर। कंप्रेसर के ब्लेड्स आजकल ज़्यादातर कंपोजिट मटीरियल, टरबाइन भी ऑलमोस्ट अभी रिसर्च इसकी होती है, ये कंपोजिट मटीरियल।
थैंक यू।
Thank you so much. Yes, you. Thank you so much. Yes, the house is open. The house is open. No problem.
बचपन से ही वो देखता